After lawmakers adjourned yesterday with no resolution on how to reopen the government, we stand here on day 2 of the shutdown. A vote to end it failed again yesterday as Senate Democrats hold on to demands to fund health care subsidies that President Trump and Republicans at this point refuse to extend. Senators aren't scheduled to vote again until Friday. They're taking a break today for the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur. This is the first shutdown, though, in nearly 7 years that has disrupted government functions and left hundreds of thousands of workers furloughed. Office of Management and Budget Director Russ Vought told House Republicans yesterday in a private phone call that the White House will begin firing federal employees in the next 1 to 2 days. That's according to 2 of our Republican sources on the call. Trump didn't speak publicly yesterday, but at a press briefing, the vice president, J.D. Vance, said those firings were imminent.
We are in a government shutdown. We are going to have to lay some people off if the shutdown continues. We don't like that. We don't necessarily want to do it, but we're going to do what we have to keep the American people's essential services continuing to run.
We've said this before. In a typical shutdown, you temporarily furlough people. You don't permanently lay them off. That's a key difference the administration is doing now. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries hit back on Wednesday, saying the Trump administration's been cutting jobs and laying off federal workers since its first day in office. So the shutdown's no different.
These are all things that the Trump administration has been doing since January 20th. The mass firings of federal workers, Trump administration has been engaging in this since January 20th. Targeting the clean energy economy, Republicans have been doing that since January 20th and assaulted the clean energy economy and the creation of good-paying American jobs in their one big, ugly bill. Trump administration has been killing jobs. This is a job-killing administration. Job creation is down, but you know what's up? Costs.
Yesterday, Vance continued to peddle Republican claims that Democrats shut down the government to give illegal immigrants free health care.
What they have done instead is to shut down the government because we won't give billions of dollars to health care funding for illegal aliens. That is what has actually happened. To the American people who are watching, the reason your government is shut down at this very minute is because, despite the fact that the overwhelming majority of congressional Republicans and even a few moderate Democrats supported opening the government, the Chuck Schumer AOC wing of the Democratic Party shut down the government because they said to us, we will open the government, but only if you give billions of dollars of funding for health care for illegal aliens. That's a ridiculous proposition.
That message has been echoed by Republican lawmakers and the Trump administration many times in recent days, but it's also highly misleading. U.S. law prohibits unauthorized immigrants from gaining any federally subsidized health care coverage. We're talking Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, the Children's Health Insurance Program, or otherwise. None of those programs are things they're eligible for. The Democrats' bill also wouldn't change that existing law. The changes that are being sought by Democrats would only extend Medicaid coverage to immigrants who the federal government has labeled as lawfully present. They don't formally have legal status yet. They're not citizens yet either. But at the same time, they are working through the system legally, the way that they're supposed to. Republicans' Big Beautiful Bill Act passed this summer significantly restricted non-citizen eligibility for Medicaid coverage. And according to an analysis of Congressional Budget Office data, roughly 1.4 million could lose health insurance coverage under the bill's provisions. Democrats' bill seeks to extend subsidies that keep health insurance premiums low for people insured through the Affordable Care Act. Those are set to expire later this year. Undocumented immigrants are already barred from accessing that money, and nothing in the Democrats' bill is going to change that. I want to bring in now congressional reporter for Semafor, Eleanor Mueller. Eleanor, you and I were at a Republican press conference yesterday where we were listening to Republicans continue to parrot that claim, knowing full well, as I've seen reporters fact check them on this in the hall, that that's not doing what they say it's doing. And yet they are trying to make this a battle about illegal immigrants getting things that they shouldn't be getting from the federal government. Why is that the way that they're framing this? And why aren't Democrats being more forceful in pushing back?
Well, I think one way that they're focusing so much, or one reason they're focusing so much on that, is because Democrats' biggest ask really is for those enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies that you mentioned that are going to bring premiums up when they expire at the end of the year. It's a huge political liability for Republicans who control the House, the Senate, the White House. And rather than talk about the fact that they're not playing ball on that right now, I think it's much more politically expedient for Republicans to be focusing on this idea of non-citizens, the idea that maybe Americans who are citizens are paying for them to access health care, which, as you've explained, is not what Democrats are talking about doing.
Yeah, and I wonder if Democrats aren't talking about it because they don't want to give more oxygen to it. But I do think that it's important to just present people with what the facts actually are, as we just did, and as these lawmakers all have command, frankly, of being able to do as well. But I think on the Affordable Care Act piece, there was a very, I thought, important moment yesterday during the press conference that we were at where a reporter asked if Speaker Johnson was similarly open to negotiations on the Affordable Care Act subsidies. Thune has said he's open to them, but he doesn't want to do them right now. To me, that's always been the off-ramp to this shutdown. What did you make of the fact that Speaker Johnson said, well, that's not really the issue right now, just completely sidestepped it?
Johnson's been much more adamant than Thune has up until this point that this is he's called it a December policy decision. It is not a current funding decision. And so he wants to talk about it then. Unlike Thune, he's dealing with a right wing that is much more adamant about the costs of extending those subsidies. You know, I think folks like Freedom Caucus Chair Andy Harris have told us that they're willing to play ball, but they are much more interested in things like income caps, things like a shorter time frame that could make this less expensive for lawmakers. And so he is facing a slightly more complicated calculus there, and that could be part of the reason why we're seeing a little more reluctance to talk about it.
It could be that Freedom Caucus members put out an op-ed saying that they don't want to see those subsidies extended. At the same time, though, you would pick up Democratic votes if you were cobbling together a coalition. Not that we do that in Washington anymore, it seems. But then the other piece of it, too, is the Office of Management and Budget Director Russell Vought did a call with just House Republicans yesterday, acted very quickly, talking about the steps that OMB is going to take in terms of potentially cutting jobs in a permanent fashion, starting to take away these billions in funding projects that are in specifically Democratic areas. I mean, we are watching the federal government do a lot of pressure campaigning on House and Senate Democrats to try to get them in line on this.
Yeah, and it's not just Democrats who are upset about it. You know, we wrote yesterday about how even Republicans in the House and the Senate are trying to pump the brakes. You know, they're saying that it's maybe not such a good idea to be specifically targeting federal workers, federal projects, and it could hurt bipartisan legislating down at the line. Whether or not we see the OMB director back off of some of these things, I think remains to be seen. He was pretty adamant, even when House Republicans on the call yesterday were raising concerns about federal workers in their districts, that these things are going to start happening later this week, even though, I mean, as Democrats have been making the point, the White House doesn't necessarily have any enhanced legal authority during a shutdown. It's not like Trump is now more able to do these things. I think they're just taking an opening where they see it to continue, in a way, the work that Elon Musk started under Doge.
Yeah, and already this stuff is starting to get tied up in court, but already we are seeing the Office of Management and Budget make these kinds of moves, because I want to get you on this next story. The Trump administration is putting on hold billions of dollars of funding for infrastructure projects in New York City. This is a big example of what we were just talking about. In a social media post, the White House budget director wrote that he would be pausing $18 billion in funding for infrastructure projects to ensure that the money was, quote, not flowing based on unconstitutional DEI principles. Specifically, he's talking about the Hudson Valley Tunnel project and the Second Avenue subway. A person familiar with the situation told NBC News that the Transportation Department employees responsible for funding this project have been furloughed due to the shutdown. And the Trump administration, quote, has concerns that the contracts awarded are inconsistent with civil rights laws and the U.S. Constitution because they were given based on racist DEI. That person continued saying, quote, thus a review of contracts awarded under the Biden administration is required, adding that the review is also paused because of the Schumer shutdown. Vought later posted that the Energy Department would cancel another $8 billion in funding related to projects in 16 states, all of which Kamala Harris happened to have carried in the 2024 election. 14 of those states have Democratic governors. Top Democrats in the region voiced their outrage at these moves. The Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said the Trump administration was using New Yorkers and New Jerseyans as pawns and called it disgusting. New York Governor Kathy Hochul accused Trump of being intent on using his reckless government shutdown to hurt the American people, adding it amounted to political payback and an attack on New York and its residents. The funding cuts also drew criticism from at least one Republican, though. That's Congressman Mike Lawler of New York, who said he strongly opposes these harmful cuts. Now, Lawler is, and I've said this before on this show, in the district that I grew up in, so he understands the number of people in his district that go into the city, whether they are using various tunnels, looking out for the Second Avenue subway, which has sort of been like a unicorn construction project for many, many years in New York. But these are also top priorities of Schumer and Jeffries. So whatever reason, thin as it might be, that the OMB director is giving for why they're suddenly revisiting these contracts, It's happening as they are trying to pressure Schumer and Jeffries to do what Republicans want them to do on the shutdown.
Exactly. And it's not just Congressman Mike Lawler who's raised concerns. You know, Senators Tom Tillis, Susan Collins, even Kevin Cramer, who I think is a little more surprising than the first two, said that they don't see this as productive. You know, they said this is something that's going to make their job on the Hill a lot harder, especially as they're trying to resolve this government funding fight. And I think Senator Cramer's words were, this is the first time, maybe ever, that Republicans have had, as he sees it, the moral high ground on a shutdown. So why are we squandering it by doing things like targeting specific, again, Democratic-controlled states by withholding their funds for these infrastructure projects?
And look, I've done several of these shutdowns, whether they're on the brink or they actually end up happening. I've never seen a pressure campaign from government agencies, from the head of the OMB, that targets the leaders of the opposing party into trying to do what they want to do. It's a city based on leverage and power. I get that. But pulling funding away from various places just because they happen to be represented by Democrats, it's something in terms of a political pressure campaign that I've never seen before. We're going to keep talking about all the different ways this is playing out. But for now, congressional reporter for Semafor, Eleanor Mueller, thank you, as always.